Bitcoin ETFs suffer their worst week to date as the crypto market slides. And will US crypto regulations finally catch up with the rest of the world? We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Nick, how are you this week?
Yeah, really good. Probably better than price action looks like it's going at the moment. It's been quite a slow week, and that's probably indicative of the month that we've seen at the end of August, really. So I see macros a bit in the dumps and crypto's being dragged down. Maybe you got a bit better insight there, Matt, on how crypto's faring.
Yeah, that's the case. Over the past 7 days, Bitcoin has been down, so therefore all of the crypto market has followed suit. So Bitcoin at the time of recording is in the mid 50,000s US dollars, that is, and it's down 4.3% over the past 7 days. ETH slightly worse, down 5.5%, and actually during the week it actually hit its year-to-date low below 2,200 US dollars, but it's back up slightly since then. So really, it's been a matter of global stock markets and US stock markets in particular, sort of sliding lower, and Bitcoin therefore having an exaggerated downturn. It's been a bit frustrating for crypto investors, I think, over recent months, because when stocks have been rallying, crypto has sort of tended to just trade range bound. So look, it happens over the years. You see correlations sort of ebb and flow. At the moment, it seems to just be when stocks crash, crypto also crashes. So we'll see that inevitably change back sooner or later. But the really big talking point in terms of markets from the past week was the ETF news, really, in terms of just Bitcoin ETFs really having their worst week so far since they launched at the start of January. So we've now had 8 straight days of net outflows for the Bitcoin ETFs. So if you were to tell me, I would say most people would agree that the ETFs have been the biggest news and the biggest reason why crypto or Bitcoin has really rallied and is still up year to date. So if you told me that was going to happen in the last 7 days, it's no real surprise that Bitcoin's prices has taken a bit of a tumble. So middle of 50,000s, still up very, very high or very strong year to date or even 12 months performance, but of course frustrating in the moment while we continue to trade within this big range since the March highs. In terms of ETF news, so Nick, there's a bit of optimism perhaps with some more adoption coming down the line.
Yeah, you nailed it there. Wells Fargo, one of the larger asset managers and banks in the US, are set to pitch Bitcoin ETFs to their customers. So they manage about 1.7 trillion worth of assets, and they're going to start actively pitching spot Bitcoin ETFs to its clients. They're setting a date of September around, so we could see this actually take hold in the coming month. This is such a huge deal because we saw it follow the kind of same line that Morgan Stanley, who are long rumored to be offering Bitcoin ETF products to its customers, and they're following suit, doing the same playbook and not supporting the Bitcoin ETFs on day one, but kind of slowly offering them. I'd like to think of this in kind of waves. So we had the first wave of the likes of BlackRock and all day one ETF issuers and people who supported them in February, back when they went live, which to be honest feels like ages ago now. We're starting to see possibly a second wave of these asset managers with the likes of Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, start to slowly roll these out. The biggest issue that we talked about previously was people thinking that the ETFs were all said and done, really, that there's not much more upside to come. But a lot of people weren't really aware that not all asset managers and banks and financial services, offerings did present these to their clients, and they were slowly being rolled out. So we're starting to see some of these other bigger banks start to roll it out to the clients. And the key word here is actively. Originally, a lot of the ETF issuers couldn't really offer them to their customers without actively seeking it out. And now I think that's starting to turn. And even if perhaps you weren't interested in Bitcoin, your Wells Fargo, executives, and managers might be able to come out and say, hey, this might be for you, here's X and Y, and start to actively pitch them to people who weren't initially thinking that it would get into the Bitcoin ETF. So huge upside here, and potentially that could help reverse some of the flows that you talked about, Matt, and we can get another leg up on Bitcoin ETF inflows.
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole new ballgame now that they're, actively being able to, I guess, recommend them where relevant, really. And I suppose the ETF issuers are still continuing to update, publicly update that they're continuing with their educational series and going around the US on road shows and teaching people about Bitcoin, which again is just a really nice sort of secondary benefit from these ETFs. And they're still saying continue to expect more increased, I guess, accessibility throughout the rest of 2024 and even into 2025. So that's really going to be unfolding, and I see no reason why that won't be the case. Everything they've said since they've launched has been true, that there's been these ongoing adoptions. So again, just something that's really, again, still poorly misunderstood by the market overall. So in terms of, adoption in the US, that is, but now we're sort of zooming out globally. We saw some big news in the past week with Qatar introducing a regulatory framework for digital assets. Nick, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, they come out and they announce some rules for tokenization, kind of legally recognizing property rights for a lot of digital tokens, a lot of tokenization, but then also smart contracts. So it's ingraining a lot of these crypto primitives and new structures and new products that will be offered in Qatar under some real legal clarity. It's a huge deal just because the Middle East has kind of started to lead the world along with parts of Asia, such as Singapore, in actually recognizing cryptocurrency and create sort of hotspot for crypto legislation. Dubai was very famous for creating their crypto legislation earlier in the year, to come out as one of the biggest countries to try and attract talent and say, hey, come build in Dubai if you want to build crypto businesses. And this is very counter to what the rest of the US particularly are doing. They're the biggest jurisdiction to really provide any clarity. Their kind of mantra at the moment is, hey, we've got the legal frameworks in place from what existed in the past, and crypto's no different, and it should abide by the same rules, which isn't exactly proving popular, and it's really resulted in really tough situation, as we'll talk about in further news articles. People not wanting to build in the US, and really tough to build a crypto business at the moment in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And it could be a coincidence, or maybe it was, a purposeful sort of decision here by Cantor Fitzgerald, their CEO. Came out last week and had a bit of a short 2-3 minute video just pitching Bitcoin and saying how they were wanting to go deeper into supporting Bitcoin, but they simply can't really with the cloudy regulations. So a lot of, I guess, a groundswell of support trying to access Bitcoin and help make Bitcoin and crypto more accessible. So we'll see if this amounts to anything. I think as we've got coming up here, we've got the SEC also, certain factions of the SEC pushing against the way things are going in terms of crypto regulation and how it's being done. That's nothing really new, but we saw last week that one of the SEC commissioners here sort of saying that the S1 form, they need a new sort of S1 form tailored for crypto. And we've seen Hester Peirce being one of the most outspoken of the 5 commissioners. But Mark Ueda here also chiming in. So look, there's a lot of talking all the time about the state of regulations, but I guess the big takeaway with Qatar and Dubai is that they've actually done something, and many other countries have also already done something.
Yeah, I think it's a key here that we even see Bitcoin being offered by different banks now in different countries. I know Switzerland, I saw an Italian bank starting to custody Bitcoin for their clients, and that's going to be the huge thing that comes out of all this, really. That's a huge catalyst in my mind for the market, to being able to go to your local bank and allow them to custody your Bitcoin. At the moment, they can't do that in the US. The rules are so stringent. Once you go to your bank in America and if you want them to custody your Bitcoin for you, that's a huge unlock for the industry that is still probably not widely appreciated in my mind.
Yeah, that's for sure. In terms of over in some other settlement or enforcement news, I think we said last week that September is normally a busy time for this sort of news to be coming out, given the fiscal year ends in September in the US, the US government and their budgets and all of that. So we saw the commodities regulator settling with Uniswap Labs for $175,000 and the CFTC alleging here that Uniswap Labs offered leveraged or margined retail commodity transactions illegally. So yeah, that was sort of some unexpected news to be coming out, given that, as we've talked about many times before, everyone's awaiting the SEC potential lawsuit against Uniswap Labs, which was announced or more or less put on the table with a Wells notice. I think it was in April or May, so quite some time ago now. But meanwhile, we've seen the CFTC wrap things up with Uniswap Labs in this particular case.
Yeah, that's one that we'd be looking forward to. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see even something come out at the end of the month with Uniswap Labs. And yeah, as I see, the important distinction here is that it was against the Uniswap Labs front end as well. So that's going to be a huge source of conjecture, because you have a completely different way in how you can even regulate the Uniswap protocol that is kind of open source and built on Ethereum versus Uniswap Labs, which is that front end entity that provides a nice user experience to access the Uniswap protocol itself.
Yeah, great point there. And in terms of other, just wrapping up sort of the regulatory stuff, it's been a continuation of this Operation Choke Point, or 2.0, as many people are calling it. Even Donald Trump recently in a speech referenced this term. And it's just more, I suppose, in this particular news article, we've seen a bank called the United Texas Bank being sort of targeted here by the Federal Reserve, sort of via a cease and desist order, as part of a broader investigation sort of into, what the US government is sort of, or what the industry is calling sort of Choke Point 2.0. People are saying, hey, this is more evidence that Choke Point 2.0 is happening. The news article on your screen here is the Blockchain Association sort of industry body sort of saying that they're wanting more information about this, because all signs point to it being, I guess, an unlawful sort of choking off of the industry. We've got, what does this actually mean in practice? It's really just a bunch of businesses who are incorporated in the US really struggling to find a bank that will accept them to, pay their employees and just do all their banking transactions, as we've seen with many other fringe industries over the years that, particularly in midland sort of US, from, if my memory serves correct, they were sort of disgruntled about a decade ago when this happened to a lot of other industries. And now crypto is particularly falling into that group and itself is being targeted. So it's more of the same, really. It's very, very unfortunate. It must be quite stressful for those who are working in the US in the crypto space. And we'll see if any of this actually changes after Trump or Harris is elected.
Yeah, it really fits in with what we talked about before. This is a prime example of why it's probably really difficult to operate in the US, and why there needs to be that more active regulation. And because at the moment, this is really difficult if you're building something in the US as a crypto company, if not nearly impossible. And that's why you're probably seeing a lot flee to places like Dubai to build actual crypto products. And it really just shows that this mantra about crypto opening up in the US, we're seeing Trump embrace crypto. There was even talks about Harris opening back up and kind of rallying or kind of changing their opinion on really hardline approach that they've been doing, is kind of a bit of BS at the moment. And it's really difficult at the moment to still operate a crypto company in the US, despite claims that it's actually a bit better and their attitudes have been shifting. So it really explains why the US presidential election is so important for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, great point there, Nick. I know there was a lot of regulation this week. Of course, we take it as it comes, given this week, and there wasn't really much other news. But again, for anyone newer to crypto or just not understanding how this relates to the market outlook and whatnot, it's hard to sort of find a bigger factor that will determine whether crypto can go up, 10x from here, or if it's just going to meander along and even just in a really bearish case, just eventually sort of dwindle back towards not really being much of an industry at all. So this stuff is integral to the outlook for crypto, even though week to week it may not seem like it has much of a connection to markets. Well, it doesn't in the short term, but it's absolutely something that's high on our monitor list. We actively sort of monitor progress in this space, and we'll update you from time to time like we have today in this podcast as well.
But maybe shifting gears to something a bit more positive. Yes, the crypto is actually being adopted in other countries too, so it's not to be too bearish. Yeah. But Japan, I saw here, there was 3 major banks in the country that grouped together to test cross-border stablecoin transfers and a stablecoin transfer platform. So these banks will work together to use Swift's existing kind of API network for banks to instruct them to program and settle on blockchain networks. So huge announcement, and I've been seeing a lot of discussion or rolling out of programs in Japan, from Japan looking to create, or Sony looking to create its own exchange, and then going further to creating its own layer 2 blockchain on Ethereum. So this huge deal here to show that Japan is really taking it seriously and opening back up to cryptocurrency. And after all, stablecoins, cross-border transfers and payments, that was the big killer use case for crypto that's still widely applicable today. So this platform looks set to commence in a prototype form sometime maybe at the end of the year and then commercialize sometime in 2025. So a lot of positives in Japan, especially on blockchain adoption and crypto adoption.
Nice, thank you for that, Nick. Before we head into the altcoin segment, I was doing a bit of looking around of what's ahead. Yes, there's a lot of industry conferences at this time of the year and through Q4, but I also found a lot of project-specific conferences. They have little side events throughout the year, but in terms of a lot of altcoins have main, I guess, annual conferences where it's their big opportunity to showcase what they've been working on and what's ahead. So I actually counted of the top 50 altcoins by market cap, I counted 7 of them have their main annual event happening between now and the end of October. So yeah, I saw Stellar was in there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the turnout for that is. I haven't heard that one for a while.
Yeah, they have I think it's like their fifth or so version of this annual event happening in the UK. There's also Ripple was another one, Solana, Avalanche, Chainlink was another one with their SmartCon coming up, and 2 others that I'm not remembering at the moment, but there will be, I guess the point of all this is there will be a lot of news coming up about altcoins. And look, if we get to the end of that and there's not really much to talk about, that wouldn't be too great overall. So we'll see what happens. But for now, we do have some updates to get through.
The first one here, maybe going back to Ripple, they've come out and announced their stablecoin that's going to be active on the network, and then also announced plans to launch an EVM smart contract sidechain and Ethereum support on the network. So this is a huge deal for Ripple. I probably actually think it's more overrated, really, because I'm really struggling to see how anyone would want to use a Ripple stablecoin on the XRP ledger in any fundamental way. I really struggle to see why don't you just use USDC, USDT, even PayPal USD, because these cryptocurrencies, these stablecoins, are widely adopted in a lot of thriving DeFi ecosystems, from Solana then to Ethereum and its range of L2 networks. So really struggling to see where Ripple's stablecoin fits in here and whether it would gain any real momentum or adoption on chain. And I really don't think this moves the needle too much for XRP as a cryptocurrency anyway, as a lot of activity is actually not really happening on XRP ledger and on that network at all. It's probably a lot of the Ripple's business is really just working privately with companies on CBDCs, really, which have no impact on XRP, or very, very little, as XRP wasn't really picked up as a bridge currency, to really facilitate stablecoin payments of what its original vision was to be. So, positive for Ripple, but at the end of the day, I don't really see this being adopted in any meaningful way, and maybe more of the same for XRP.
Yeah, I share that sentiment as well, Nick. And yeah, with that sidechain as well coming up for Ripple, that's coming up. I think by the end of the year they're targeting. So that's a partnership with one of the main bridge projects out there in Axela. And then Ripple also saying in a blog post recently that that's sort of one thing to get excited about in terms of EVM compatibility, or just building more things on Ripple to try to simplify it as much as possible. And then their biggest sort of goal after that would be to actually have native smart contract capabilities on the XRP ledger itself, which is still in the R&D phase and shouldn't be expected anytime soon. So look, there's things in motion at Ripple as always, but I share the same outlook as you in terms of the project moving forward. In terms of Arbitrum, they had quite a big milestone this week. They've been working on Stylist for a while, which we have done some content on previously for Collective Shift members, and that actually went live on mainnet last week. So in very simple terms, it's just a way to open up Arbitrum to more developers, really. So you don't have to have smart contract language expertise or skills to be able to now build on Arbitrum, which is a dream scenario, really, in terms of when you're talking about, I guess, the addressable market of developers for Arbitrum. All of a sudden now it's open and accessible to a lot more developers than previously. So I guess not devil's advocate, but just the thing to keep in mind now is, okay, this is very technically hard to build this Stylist, a big milestone now it's out. But I think now we'll see the rubber hit the road whether it does in terms of, okay, now that it is more accessible, does that mean there's actually now more developers building on Arbitrum? And I guess we'll be able to tell in sort of the months, even the next year or two, whether Stylist has ignited any new sort of adoption of building on blockchains.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe keeping on the Ethereum ecosystem and network. I saw Polygon finally, after I think they first teased it in July 2023, they upgraded their Matic token to Pol. So this was a massive shift in what they're being called Polygon 2.0. This really increases the token utility. I think a few improvement proposals were passed to increase some utility. So Pol will be used for more security to backstop and secure some of these other chains that are being built on the network. But it will also introduce a 2% monthly or emissions schedule. So this is probably the negative side of it. Token utility, great. Even Matic rebranding to Pol, a lot more simple, considering people really associate what Matic is when you're talking about Polygon. But introducing a 2% emission schedule was something I saw a lot of uproar about when they first announced it, and it just means that Matic or Pol, the token, once had all of its tokens in the market. It's now not going to have a maximum supply. It's just going to have some of that infinite no supply, no maximum supply, and that 2% emission schedule will go to, I think, a lot of validators and some staking to encourage people to get involved and to put their Pol to work.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. Exciting to see that Polygon 2.0, that sort of multi-phase release now coming to an end, and looks like Polygon 2.0 will be launched in its final sort of capacity. Look, you would expect at least within the next 6 months, and we'll follow along for updates from the Polygon team there.
Hopefully they come out and it revives Polygon, because they've had really the biggest disappointments in the bull run so far. They had touted a lot of partnerships with the like of Starbucks, DraftKings, and I think there was probably a handful of others. With Disney, but none of them really eventuated. Starbucks went down its NFT membership program, its loyalty card, and then we saw DraftKings actually start to be not sued, but really under the fire for that partnership that didn't really eventuate too much for Polygon, and that's now ended.
Hopefully they can keep Polymarket.
I think that would be disaster. They lose Polymarket.
Yeah. So we'll continue to cover Polygon for sure. They've still got a fighting chance there, but outlook not as great as it was, say, 12 or 18 months ago. In terms of things we're looking forward to, I did mention those 7 altcoin specific conferences coming up. One of them here is Breakpoint, Nick.
Yeah, Breakpoint's going to be on 20 to 21 of September 2024. So towards the end of the month, that's going to be a huge one to look at adoption, how many people attended, to see any announcements by ecosystem projects, and then finally looking at Firedancer and seeing if their first implementation, which they're calling, I think, a 0.1, which is going to be called Frankendancer, is going to be rolled out, and whether we're going to get a date finally, and that's going to be a huge catalyst, because a lot of people have been looking forward to this, and it's being billed as what Solana Labs team would have built to run Solana on if they were building it today, and they were just talking about how their first version was really hacked together just to get something out in beta, and now we're going to start to see another big infrastructure project start to hit Solana, and we'll see what impact this has on the market.
Yeah, well said. I think we both just have been eyeballing this conference for a while, and we're really keen to follow along with it. I think the agenda did get released over this most recent weekend, so for anyone interested, head to the main Breakpoint website. Just Google Solana Breakpoint, and you'll be able to see the agenda there as well. In terms of other short-term catalysts, well, very, very near-term, we've got the first and therefore most important debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump happening. It happens very late on Tuesday night, I guess local time there in the US. So therefore, I think it starts at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. So that could very well move markets, in particular if there is a clear winner either way. So just watch out for that. And also September 18th, we're watching that as well, for the Federal Reserve to cut rates by either 25 or 50 basis points, which is, it would be shocking if they didn't cut rates, given what's happened in the last few weeks. So some things to look forward to there for sure. In terms of our rapid fire here to end things, we've got underappreciated or overappreciated. I would say my underappreciated for this week is this graphic that was put up by River, so a Bitcoin sort of focused company out there and exchange. And they had this graphic here from MicroStrategy and Tether, their accumulation of their Bitcoin holdings over the years. And what took me back was really just the daily average of these accumulations. So MicroStrategy here, 156 Bitcoin per day they've been acquiring since dating back to 2020 when they started. And Tether here, dating back to late in 2022, has on average been acquiring 113 Bitcoin per day. So of course, they will continue, these two entities in particular will continue to build their Bitcoin stacks. And I don't foresee them selling Bitcoin anytime soon. If ever, it would be multiple years and years and years away. So I think that rate of acquisition will drop, but the number of Bitcoin that they own will be increasing. And I think Tether in particular is one, given how profitable it is, you can almost guarantee they'll continue to stack sats, as they say. But when you factor in the halving that happened in April, we went from a daily increase in circulating supply of 900 Bitcoin were mined per day. Now we've got 450. So when you add up these two entities alone, that's a lot of sucking up of the supply by these two entities. So very encouraging during times like these when we're just chopping around. It can be easy to lose sight of the bigger picture here. And yeah, this is definitely an exciting chart.
It's a great chart. Maybe one if you're getting a bit bearish. Bitcoin heads down to 50s that you can look at and give you a source of inspiration.
For sure. What have you got for us this week, Nick?
I've been a bit greedy here, and I'm going to go with two quick overrateds. Firstly, overrated for Cardano's mainnet upgrade that they've recently released in the first phase, and they're going to do this in a second phase, I think later on in the year. Just because I've really struggled to see any on-chain adoption for Cardano. It essentially makes ADA, its native token, into a governance token, really, because I think the keys are going to be burnt, and a lot of the network development and a lot of the key decisions are going to be actually fully handed over to the community in the space of this final upgrade. But looking at the end, which is essentially of its roadmap and its development roadmap, they've reached all 5 stages at the end of the year. There isn't a lot to show for it on chain. The stablecoins, I think, are ranked 39 out of all the chains. Wow. I only think 14 million currently live on Cardano, behind the likes of Tezos. I can't even pronounce some of these other blockchains. That's how small and really insignificant they are in terms of their ranking. So they really lag behind a lot of the space, and things like volume, TVL are in the 30s of the blockchain. So if you have something that reaches its final mainnet upgrade, really showing the end of its development roadmap, not a lot to actually show for it, in my opinion. Finally, overrated for Trump's new project. I think it's called World Liberty Financial. This one's that actually is quite terrifying a bit, hearing that they're actually even talking about doing an ICO possibly, and raising a public round for this cryptocurrency network. Whenever you see things that talk about like high yields and the likes, I really get skeptical. And for me, I'm really shocked to see this, considering how much Trump has embraced crypto, but perhaps going too far and teaming up with and even forking potentially some other cryptocurrencies that, or another project that was called Doe Finance that got actually exploited in July this year. So not a lot of actual fundamental, I think, crypto experts possibly running this, and this is kind of actually shaping up to be a bit of a disaster if it doesn't get nipped in the bud.
Yeah, worst case scenario is if it launches and gets hacked or something like that. A number of things could make this quite bad for Trump's reputation and therefore chances of a victory in the election, even though crypto is quite small in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it's something you don't really want, a distraction possibly. So yeah, good 2 ones to finish off there, Nick, and we will wrap things up there. So if you are looking for more insights, definitely head over to our weekly Shift newsletter and subscribe to that. So that is free weekly market insights delivered straight to your inbox every Friday. So you can subscribe to that at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.